What up, guys? It's Chris. A lot of my videos have been about a bunch of different softwares, GrandMA 2, Resolume, Unreal Engine. I kind of want to talk to you today about how I use all these different softwares as a lighting programmer, designer, technician, and a video programmer and, aspiring content creator. So there's a bunch of different softwares I want to talk about today, how I use them, how I don't use them, the price points of the softwares, how someone who's just getting started can do everything that they need to do in a professional manner without spending $5,000 a year on software. Because as you'll see later in the video, some of these softwares get pretty pricey, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So to start, I just made a quick list of all the pricing and the software. And I just wanted to go through it really quickly with you guys because I think it is very important that you know about all the different options of things. There isn't one right way to do anything that applies to art, that applies to lighting design, that doesn't apply to safety, but that applies to almost every element of design. So with that being said, let's just go through the list really quick. So starting off with Vectorworks. Vectorworks is kind of the industry standard for drafting. A lot of people design in there. A lot of people use it for drafting. Some people use it for previs. You can get, the ESP Vision, I think it's called, with it. It's pretty expensive. To be fair, there's not a lot of other softwares that can do everything that Vectorworks can do. And like I said, it is kind of an industry standard. It just comes with a very hefty price tag. The Adobe Suite is incredible. I think it's over 50 programs for around $56 a month. Primarily, I use Premiere. I use Illustrator for a lot, which I'll go into in a little bit. I've used Photoshop here, there, and everywhere. I don't really know how to use it, and I've dabbled with After Effects. Those four softwares alone, to me, are worth the $56 a month. I've also used Adobe Audition for some audio things. Also some time code related things, so that can be helpful if you have the suite, and Media Encoder for all sorts of fun things. The next one on the list is Unreal Engine. I just found out about Unreal Engine in, I want to say, the beginning of the pandemic, so of March 2020. The fact that it's free software is mind-blowing to me. You can do so much with it. With that being said, you have to have some hardware behind it to be able to get some performance out of it. There are some plugins that cost a little bit of money. Some of the assets cost a little bit of money, things like that. But Unreal Engine itself is free. I've used it to make models for people. I've used it to make videos for people. I've used it to previs lighting. I think Unreal Engine is an incredible tool, and I think that we'll see a lot more of that going forward in 2021. Capture is a software that is kind of awesome because it is a drafting software and a previs software, which not many of these other ones have both of those capabilities. This is geared more towards lighting previs, but you can also do lasers and pyro and video as well. And they have an interesting price point. You can buy one universe for $480, two universes for $964, four universes for $1,571, and the unlimited version, which is $2,663. For me, if I was to dive into the software, I would just buy the unlimited version. It seems to be the best bang for your buck. At a school that I sometimes teach at, we bought the two universe version because they have dimmers on one and LEDs on two, and to be honest, that's been absolutely perfect for the school. And now we get into the MA lighting. So I use MA2 on PC in combination with MA3D for a lot of things. It works seamlessly together. They're both free. It's really the best bang for your buck if you're using an MA2 console. I can't say enough about it. MA3 is coming up. There's going to be some changes to our workflows if we are proficient in MA. There's just going to be some changes coming up in the future that I want to talk about with MA3 and possibly other consoles following suit. I know a lot of visualizers are following this particular trend. Yeah. Next on the list, we have Depends. I just found out about this software at the beginning of the year. I want to say in February of 2020. And if, my income didn't stop, I would absolutely buy it. For $2,400 for a one-time purchase, this seems like an incredible previs software. Some of the videos that I've seen people render come out of it is incredible. Just some of the key features about being able to record your DMX and then scrub through the timeline and watch it play and make some edits and go in and add some things on top of it. That workflow to me seems invaluable. Next on the list is WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. This is probably the oldest previs software. I remember hearing about this in my high school theater days and being amazed at these little, squares moving lines. But a lot of people use it. I have a really good friend of mine who loves it. And, it's just, again, it's on the more expensive side of things, but if everything is working to your advantage and you're working for an A or a B level artist, cranking out some designs, then, $3,000 shouldn't be a whole lot to you. The next thing on the list is Google SketchUp. So the main reason I included Google SketchUp is that there is a website called 3dswarehouse.com, and almost everything under the sun is drawn and drafted and modeled on 3dwarehouse.com. At the end of the day, we're lighting guys, right? We're lighting and video guys. We know DMX. We might not know how to 3D model, how to make all these things, but we want to take our previs to the next level. We want to make it look as real as possible so that we can sell our client on the design. And that's where something like SketchUp would come in, where for, a small price of $300 a month, you can download, all these different assets that would otherwise have, cost money, say on the Unreal Engine marketplace or websites like CG Trader or things like of that nature. And what you can do is you can download them, open the file in SketchUp, export them as an FBX, and as long as you know how to deal with those files, then you should be able to maintain the art and the model and the textures and all that stuff and be able to use that in Unreal. I've had assets cost up to hundreds of dollars in Unreal Engine just for one thing. So $300 for a whole year of kind of unlimited assets to me is an incredible deal, and that's why I wanted to mention it on this list. I know we're mostly talking about lighting and concert previs and stuff, but a lot of this can go back to the Unreal Engine stuff as well. The next thing on the list is Resolume Arena. I have 2 copies of this on 2 separate machines myself. This is probably the most affordable media server. Sketchy in the sense that there's little support because of the hardware variety, right? So it's awesome. You can put it on any hardware. You can put it on laptops, Macs, PCs, all sorts of stuff. But there's little support for that. And the reason the next 2 media servers are used more on the bigger shows is because, Hollywood, for example, can justify paying tens of thousands of dollars for a server, right? Which all of these are just glorified DVD players. The support that comes with a $50,000 media server is unmatched with some of the stuff that Resolume does. Not to say that their support isn't good. However, they just can't provide as much support as other people because, Green Hippo has tested, this motherboard with this set of RAM, with this CPU, and they've put that through the paces, and then they can confidently know that configuration will be able to hold up during the Emmys, during the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, during America's Got Talent, things of that nature. So with that being said, the next 2 softwares, I'll call them, they're like the free kind of designer, just kind of software interactions of them. So obviously, hardware is exponentially expensive, but these people, they want you to know how to use their product. They want people to be fluent on their product so that they can recommend their product to bigger shows, and ultimately everyone makes more money. That's why MA is free. That's why Disguise and Green Hippo is free, in my opinion. This is, in fact, I don't know these people at any of the manufacturers, but that would be my guess, is they want you to know this software, and they want you to be using it on shows, and ultimately it just makes them more money in the long run. Notch is pretty cool because you can do a lot of crazy stuff with it. You can do iMag stuff, crazy effects. You can do a lot of sound reactive things. You can build crazy environments just like you would in Unreal Engine. They're both real-time playback engines. They're both real-time rendering engines, and their powers are kind of only limited by your mind, really, and your computer hardware for sure, but mostly by your mind. So the base model of Notch is about $120 a month, and the Pro is about $230 a month. I can't remember what the biggest difference. I have a feeling it has to do with a certain number of Notch blocks and being able to export certain things, that and the other. I'm not 100% on the Notch Disguise workflow yet. That's something I would love to get into and love to be fluent in. However, I am not. And last but not least, I just wanted to mention Cinema 4D. I do have a couple of friends that do draft in Cinema 4D, or they make content in Cinema 4D. I had read a great book about how a lot of concert designers will use Cinema 4D because you can do things like UV texture map, and I don't 112% understand what that is just yet, but I know that the possibility is kind of endless, in a sense that you can draw these crazy LED walls and UV texture map it, and then you can hand that to the content creation team. They can work off of that template and say, okay, this is the content size it needs to be, and you can go to the iHeartRadio festival down the road and play that content, and if everybody's done their math and played ball, then it should work out just perfectly. I also know a lot of lighting designers that have done a lot of their renderings, not necessarily their draftings, but their renderings in Cinema 4D as well, and they've created some incredible products. So in my studio / office, I have 3 computers, and I just kind of wanted to show you guys how I divide up the software between the different computers. I don't have or own every software that I had mentioned. The softwares that I do actually own and actually use on a day-to-day basis are listed here. And this is kind of how I have broken up my 3 computers. The last thing I wanted to do was talk about the hardware attached to the computers and kind of how that plays a big role in creating these renderings. So first, to start, let's start with the Previs 3D machine. That's the beefiest one that I have. That has a 6-core CPU. It also has the Blackmagic DeckLink Duo, which allows me to have 4 SDI inputs or outputs. I usually use a combination of 2 and 2. And if you notice on the picture, you'll see that there's 5 actual BNC connectors. One of them is for reference, and the other 4 you can use in any flavor of in or out. The other important thing I have hooked up to this PC is the Focusrite. Sometimes I use that for timecode in, sometimes I use that for a microphone in, like I'm doing right now. Sometimes I use that to take a sound from an instrument in, if I'm doing some sound activated stuff in Unreal or Notch or stuff. That's how I'll utilize that hardware. In my media server rack mount, I have a DeckLink mini recorder, which is just one input of the HDMI or SDI flavor. I have another Focusrite for the same reason. I used that computer a few weeks ago probably a few months ago now, when I was streaming rehearsals for the college, we were streaming it to Zoom. We would take the program audio feed and just pump it into our Zoom machine via a Focusrite. And again, I've used that for time code and all sorts of stuff because I mainly use my rack mount machine as a media server. And last but not least, I just want to talk about my laptop. It's nothing crazy. It's just a Razer Blade Stealth. There's integrated graphics. There's no specific GPU. But the hardware attached to this is honestly the heart of the whole operation, or my whole operation, to a degree, is the MA Node. And I bought this a long time ago, and it has well been paid off. This allows me to network in my laptop and any other machines, and I'll actually get 1024 parameters of data. What that will allow me to do is if I was using another visualizer that's not MA3D, you need hardware to actually output. I believe with WYSIWYG that there's like some MA on PC handshake or something that happens there, but I believe like for Capture and for Depends and for this really cool lighting visualizer that I'm using right now, which is a plugin for Unreal called Carbon, you need actual parameters, and you need to output streaming ACN, you need to output ArtNet, you need to output MANet, you need to output some physical parameters, and this MA Node allows me to do that. And the laptop is kind of the command center, the central place. Everything happens on the console for me. That's where I'm most comfortable. That's where I want to play and pause the video. That's where I want to, program. Everything under the sun is on the console end of things. So that's why the laptop and the Node is such an important piece to the puzzle. All right, so now that we've talked about all the hardware and software that kind of goes into all this and is in my studio, I want to talk about some of the examples that I've done with it. So first, I just want to show a couple of drawings that I've made in Adobe, mostly Adobe Illustrator. One of the lighting companies that I worked on early in my career, that's all they used to make their lighting plots was Adobe Illustrator. It's not the most professional way for sure, but it's certainly not the most unprofessional way. So I just wanted to go through a couple system block diagrams that I've made, a couple of LED wall layouts that I've made, and a couple of lighting plots that I've made in Adobe Illustrator just to show you guys the possibilities of what there is. So first we can start off. This is a rack that I own in Providence, and this is one of my media server racks. This has a copy of Resolume on it, and sometimes I rent this out to some clients. But here you can just see a simple, drawing of the rack spaces and the computer specs. And, again, this goes back to the professionalism is as long as it's clear and people can read the information and your information comes across strong, it doesn't really matter what medium it's done in, unless you're sharing with a bunch of artists, or if everybody has to work, or if 9 people have to work on this one Vectorworks file, for example, or if 9 people have to work on this one Photoshop file. That's the only time it's important to me. Again, I'm a one-man operation that does a lot of this, so take my advice with a grain of salt. This is a system block diagram that I had drawn from one of the recent tours that I had done. I was the lighting designer and director, and I became the video programmer and director. So this was my layout for my Hypnotizer rack at front of house. And you can see that everything's color-coded, that there's a key, that there's... It's relatively clear. I'm not going to go through everything here. This was one version of it, and things kind of, changed as time went on. It became a lot smaller than this. Definitely didn't need any sort of time code distributilizer in it, but this was an example of my system block diagram that, again, I drew in Illustrator. This here is a layout of some panels, some LED panels that I did for a show at the college. You can see the different kind of inputs and outputs. And that we have from the media server to the media server, the different LED panels around the stage, whether it's projection, whether it's LED. This was kind of how I drew it all out as a LED technician for this gig. And, stuff like this, I'm a color coding guy. This kind of helps out. I had a couple students that would help me run some cables, so it's very important to keep organized and make sure things are labeled, and especially if you have multiple people helping you out. And the last thing we'll look at here is my lighting plot that I had drawn in Illustrator as well. This was at a time where I got an incredible opportunity, and I just didn't have the means to go out and spend $3,000 on Vectorworks so that the companies would, maybe take me more seriously. I just drew what I wanted, and I made it clear and concise, and, communication is key. Don't be that guy on the emails that, things get misconstrued in text. Please talk to your technicians. Design or as techs, talk to your designers or the touring LD or whoever, just to make sure that things are gonna, happen and the plot is construed as possible. This was my example of a lighting plot, and I sent it to the guys at Upstaging, and when I rolled in the day of, everything was perfect, exactly perfect. This is a picture. So going back to the lighting plot that I made in Illustrator, this is kind of the rendered product, if you will. Again, I didn't have too much money at the time to go wild spending on software, so this was rendered in MA3D, as you can tell by the MA logo on the bottom, and this is what I came up with. I used the fixture pack. What's it called? I used the Keylight fixture pack. I can link that below. That's an incredible bang for your buck. That's just for MA3D. That makes your Vipers look a little more like Vipers, and your Quantums look a little more like Quantums, and certain things like that, as opposed to just kind of blocky moving lights that you would get with MA3D. I also have some chain motors and stuff up there, some 4 lights, things of that nature. But yeah, between Adobe and MA3D, this is what I had sent to Upstaging, again, to make everything happen. And I'm going to put a couple pictures after this of the finished product or of the pictures in Upstaging, just so that we can all see the comparison. This is probably my best example from rendering to reality.